Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hadeen, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in Mesa, Arizona. With me today is Brett Spencer, the Vice President of Sales of Laticrete North America, and we are going to talk about value creation through products. This message of charge more. And look, I'm partially behind that message, right? I tell people to increase their prices all the time. That's great. But you can only charge more for so long before it's not going to do anything for you. And so you need to offer value. What is that? How do you do that? And that's what Brett and I are going to get into today. I want to let you know Floor Academy is your source to take your business from wherever you're at, right? Maybe you own a job. Maybe you do actually have a business and you have a couple employees. There's some systems and processes in place. I want to help you get all the way to owning an asset that runs without you there. You need to be able to go live your dreams, be happy. You should be able to go on a vacation and it should keep churning and working while you're not there. That's the beauty of it. And I want to help you get there through the conversations I have with other industry professionals to get you the administrative and business advice to take you to those next levels. Before we get started, I want to let you know, for over 65 years, Laticrete has been a leading manufacturer of products and systems covering tile and stone installation, masonry, veneer installation, resinous and decorative floor finishes, concrete construction chemicals, and concrete restoration. They offer an array of low VOC and sustainable products. Their products contribute to LEED certification, exceed commercial and residential VOC building requirements, and are backed by the most comprehensive warranties in the industry. We'll get into those warranties in this conversation, I bet. For more information on Laticrete and the products they offer, visit laticrete.com. Brett, welcome to the show. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it?
No, thank you for having me, first of all, Kyle. I appreciate the time to be on here. So a little bit of background for me. Started in the tile and stone industry. It's been probably about 20 years now. Or close to that. Started actually on the distribution side, worked on the contracting side for a little bit as well. And now on the manufacturing side for Laticrete International, or if you're on the West Coast, you're probably calling it Laticrete. We get both of those mixed across the US and they're both correct on my side. So my job with the company is originally was hired on as a sales rep locally in the Southern California market. Ended up becoming a regional sales manager. Then a regional vice president, and recently vice president of North America for the sales team, which includes the U.S. and Canada for us. So go up with our friends in the North. So been with the company a little over 10 years now. And most of my job is just working with our sales team in the field who work with all of our end users, right? All the people who are the reason we're able to pay our bills each month, the reason we're able to put a roof over our heads, the people who trust us to use our products. So that's a brief snapshot history of me.
Okay. Well, and so even to get there, right, there's steps, there's processes you need to learn in how do we handle people? How do we position our product that, not every sales guy wants to move up. Not every sales guy would be able to handle that next level of being able to look at how do we poise our product to get in more areas, right? How do we get it out there? How do we convey that message? And so I'm sure you've done many things to help the company move forward, and that's one of the reasons why you get to step up that corporate ladder, right? You're checking the boxes for them. You're being developed and whatnot. So within that, I think a lot of times contractors, right? Like I said, we have this message, and it's go charge more. That's what you see in all the Facebook groups these days. You're not charging enough. Go charge more. Well, okay, great. So I was charging $2 a foot. Maybe it's $5 a foot, but just whatever it is, right? Well, what's more? Is it 6? Is it 8? Is it 10? And at what point do I cap myself in the market or cut myself off from being able to get work because I'm still delivering everything I was delivering before? So what?
Correct.
When you're looking at positioning that value proposition, how are you going about it so that it's not like I'm not focused on price, right? If I go from $2 a foot to $5 a foot, that's great. But if it's still the same install, it's still the same install. So how do you look at a value proposition, and what are you putting in there so that I'm not looking at the cost of your product? All of a sudden I'm saying, how can I not buy it?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the question for every project, right? Is, every project that every contractor works on in their career will be different, right? There's always going to be variations. There's always going to be changes. And I think the key is having the right tool for the right project. And that applies to our materials as well as anything else you're going to use on the job. And we work on the broad scope of things, right? So you could be doing something where you're trying to install 40 bathrooms that are all the same, and some track homes, and you need speed, right? That's your biggest thing there that you need to go through. Or you could be working on someone's home who you're doing a bathroom or a lobby or, an entryway that they flew to Europe and picked out the marble block that they had cut into slabs for their living room. Yeah. And we get involved in all the way, right? So they're going to probably have some different demands or different requests in the project based off that scope. And then you have everything in between, right? From the Rams Stadium that we just worked on in Los Angeles to, small little boutique shops. And so I think the key with most of that we always try and advise people on is say, hey, walk us through what your needs are for the project, right? What are your actual requirements? And then we can fill out what the appropriate products are. Because I've had conversations with contractors where I've talked them up and down from our product range, right? Either up into a product they needed that was more expensive on raw material costs, or, hey, you're using a Ferrari to go to the grocery store, right? You don't need that. We can actually get you something that's a little more cost effective that will make you competitive on this job, because at the end of the day, you still have to be competitive. There's other people out there bidding the work. You need to make sure that you have a profit margin in there. And in order to do that, I think you have to use the right tools. So I think it's understanding the project, understanding the requirements, and then that enables you to, hopefully walk forward with the right products, I would say.
Well, I think that's huge, right? You're saying walk in. If I'm going to go bid a project, I can't just walk in. I think there's a lot of contractors, and they do this. They walk in, they say 3x5 tub surround, okay, $3,500. And what is that? What Mrs. Jones wants? But, or does she want a niche over here? Can you upsell her a niche? Can you sell her a shelf to step on so that she can shave her legs? Does there need to be like some kind of deco band? Let's have a conversation. Let's not just look at it and say, well, okay, 12 by 24 is done. We're just going to throw them up. You got to understand who you're serving so that you can fulfill their needs with your products. And my products as a contractor aren't just your products. They're everything else that I can bring to the table, right? I gotta go in and I gotta demo. Can I demo in a clean manner? Can I install without making a mess everywhere? Can I tape like plastic rooms off? Can I put runners through your house so I'm not trashing your floors? I care. All these little things, right? To start understanding what her concerns are. Maybe she's been burned by a contractor. So how important has it been for you to have those conversations? You said I'm talking with a guy and he's trying to put the Ferrari stuff on the regular old Ford shower. It doesn't need it. And so you can kind of come down, but how important are those conversations and what are those skills you need to be able to have that so you can actually deliver what they need?
Yeah. I mean, on our side, I think on the sales rep side, right, which I even hate the term sales rep in general, because it implies a lot of negative connotation, right? Contractors are also sensitive to this. Some contractors feel like they get labeled as well. But I think it's building a relationship with the people you work with in your industry, right? And I think aligning the goals, saying, hey, I trust this person. I trust that they're going to give me good advice. And maybe an example of that is, I remember when I was relatively early on working for Laticrete, and I got a call from a guy who wanted to install a porcelain tile with one of our just basic thin sets. And he said, hey, can I do that? And I said, yeah, that's great. And I said, wait, we tried to get off the phone. I said, wait, what are you going over? He's like, oh, concrete. I'm like, okay, no problem. He tried to get off the phone again. And I said, wait, where's the concrete? He's like, oh, it's outside. I'm like, okay, you're still okay. It's not a big deal. That still is fine. He's like, all right, thanks. And I said, wait, where outside is the concrete? He's like, oh, it's a swimming pool. It's the shell. I was like, no, you can't go submerged with this product. And Right. And I had to upsell him or tell him why he didn't want to use that, because he'd be back in 6 months with a failure, because that's not what the product was designed to do. And so I was able to encourage him there, but that was through the conversation that we had. And he wasn't trying to be limiting on the information. He was probably standing, staring at the pool deck, right, on the phone with me, thinking, of course, this guy knows I'm talking about a pool. Right. In my mind, I'm thinking we're talking about, an entryway on a house. And so I think, again, having those conversations, that's where I think trust comes in, and having good resources of saying, hey, you should have people that can help watch your back and help you do your job better, which is what we should be doing. Right? We should be there. Any manufacturer rep, regardless of the company, any distributor rep people work with, should be a value add to people, not someone who's just there to talk them into something. If that same guy had been doing the entryway of a small home, I would have said, yeah, you have the right product. There's no way I'm going to try and upsell you to something that's 3 times the cost. That's overkill, most likely. And so those type of conversations, I think, are what are necessary. But that was because he took the time to reach out. He took the time to place a call, right? Probably took 3 to 4 minutes of both of our time. But hopefully in that, I was able to avoid him having a failure months later, where he called me after the fact. And then that's when it's bad, right? That's when it's already done. It's expensive now. You're ripping stuff out to replace it. So I was happy he called me, because I never heard on that project from him ever again. That was the last time we spoke on the project, because he used the right products.
I hope so.
But I think that's having the resource.
Oh, well, and I think that's a huge point, is not only can you go in and talk with clients when you're selling them about how you have a relationship with your reps, right? And like, if you have questions, look, I can get the guy on speed dial. You're selling an education too. You're staying up to date on the products in the market. And so you can go in front of Mrs. Jones and let her know, hey, we can use X, Y, and Z. And you don't have to get super technical, but you can ensure them that, I'm going to find the product that fits this application and use it appropriately for you. And if I do have questions, I can get a hold of somebody that's going to assist me in figuring that out. Or I know when we had a prior conversation, you were out walking the Ram Stadium that you did, and like the GC was super impressed you were there. But I also know that I can call up my rep, and if I have I don't know that you're going to do it for every bathroom project that I had, but if I had a larger scale project, I can have you come out. You'll spec the project for me and walk me through it, write it all up, and I can provide Mrs. Jones with like this write up from you and say, look, this is what we're doing here, and it's going to ensure the success of your shower or your floor or whatever it is we're doing. So how do I go about that, right? Do I just make a call, or is there like special circumstances that have to be met?
Yeah. So we, generally speaking, I love going to projects in advance, right, before they begin, because that's when we can have calm, easy conversations, because nothing's been installed. We know, hey, we can give you our advice on what we think you should do for this project, or what industry standards would be. And I tell people, I'm like, always call. Right now, if you expect us, you're calling and you go, man, I got a meeting in an hour and I got to be there with the homeowner and I want a manufacturer's rep out, the odds are really good we're probably booked out, right? We get, it's part of our job, right? We calendar ourselves out, we get appointments, trainings, meetings. But virtually any of our sales reps in the field, if you reached out to them and said, hey, I got a project coming up, it's a bit of a weird one, would you be able to meet me out there on site? They will try, regardless of whether, I've been to small bathrooms where they were doing, 20 square feet all the way up to massive multi-billion-dollar projects. We like going on all of them because realistically, once we build that relationship with the contractor who's installing it, usually we don't need to job walk everything, right? It's a phone call after that. It's a quick conversation. FaceTime is amazing to save time as well. You can literally FaceTime somebody and say, hey, our team has iPhones. You can literally just show it and go, this is what I'm kind of looking at. What do you think? And we're happy to do that. So, but usually for that, you kind of have to have some form of a relationship, right? And it's why I always tell them, like, look, get to know the people around you in the industry, right? Who work in your market. You're not going to click with everybody, but once you start building a level of trust, I have contractors that could call me and say, hey, something's wrong with your product. I will believe them. from a default, I'm assuming they're right because I've known them for 15 plus years, right? If somebody just calls me and says, hey, your products are terrible, right?
Yeah.
I need you out on my site. We've all been in those situations where it's a challenge. I'm like, all right, we're working backwards. We'd rather you call us at the beginning and get out there. So yeah, my recommendation is if you don't know your local reps, any distributor you're buying from should know who the local team is.
Yeah.
We have over 100 sales reps in the field at Laticrete. We cover every geography in North America. We can reach any job site and be there. And we'd prefer that. We also have a whole technical department. It's a 1-800 number staffed by live technical people who we call when we have questions from the field. They're fantastic. They're an incredible group of people. And we, again, can send specifications, details, information really fast. So I think it's getting that in your book, right? And I'd encourage people to do it with everybody, right? Don't just do it with us. Have your distributor's info, your tile, right? Your coatings people, have my competitors in your phone, right? Make sure that you know the people that you need to call because they're going to be the people that are an asset to you.
I totally agree. I mean, how it's so valuable. The more people you know, the more successful I think you can be, because when you run into a situation, you're going to have somebody that you can pick up that phone and reach out to because they told you a story or you heard through the grapevine, whatever it's going to be. But somebody's probably been there, done that. And if not, you know, somebody that you're just like, you know what, they're probably smart enough. And if they don't know, they know who to point me towards. And so you can start playing this, like, you know, game to find the information you need. And I've had to do it. I've called one guy and he's like, you know what, call this person, you call that person. They're like, well, I can't really talk right now, but try this person. And lo and behold, eventually you get where you need to go and problem solved. Did it slow you down maybe? And you lost 20 or 30 minutes of your day? Okay. But I'm not going to have a failure. The project's going to be a success. And so that's a win. And having the confidence, I think people get scared in front of contractors will get scared in front of homeowners and they'll want to cover things up. I don't think there's anything wrong admitting you may not have the answer, but you know how to find it. And then
exactly
that's it. The confidence in knowing you can solve it is great, but you don't have to fake it or hide it or anything like that. And so that team is very important to surround yourself with, of how can I get knowledgeable people to back me up and move me forward. I want to really dig into like creating value, right? So it's, we've poised ourselves, right? Let's charge more, but now I start losing projects. How can I build value into what I'm offering? And maybe it's already there and I just don't know how to do it.
Yeah. So it's a question we come across a lot, right? A guy's like, hey, I've been doing this for some people, it could be new, right? And they were trained a certain way, or shoot, I've been a contractor for 30 years and I'm getting underbid by all these cheap people out there. Right? Cheap guys are always underbidding everything. They don't make any money. And what I would encourage people to do is, hey, that's one more reason to be educated about new technology and new products that come out. I joke with people when we do trainings or talk about it. I'm like, look, if every product we launched wasn't either cheaper or faster in some way, right, of the overall cost of your install, we would never sell it, right? We might sell a few and we might get a couple of people who bought it. But once they did that, they'd be like, oh, that wasn't worth it. I'm never doing that again. We spend way too much money in product development and marketing and all of those things to survive if that's the type of products we launched. And instead we launch products that can do different things, right? And you know, a specific example of that for us could be, you know, uncoupling mats. We make anti-fraction uncoupling mats that go underneath tile and stone. It's a great prep to be able to go down over like exterior glue plywood, other different substrates, but it's also much faster than some of the traditional ways of doing that. And the traditional ways of doing it aren't bad. They still work, but in settings where you need to increase your speed, right? You need to increase the time it takes to do the actual physical install, the time you'd have to wait before installing your finished goods, and just how many trips it takes you in your truck to go to your distributors and back, right? These uncoupling mats are light. They're easy to install. They're fast. As soon as they go down, you can start installing tile over the top. And what I tell guys, I'm like, look, if you could save a day of your own labor, right, of your time driving back and forth between your distributor, carrying material and all of that, you could do the same project and bid it lighter because you don't have as many hours on site. You don't have to charge for your own hours and still make at least the same profit level by doing that. Right. So there are tools you can use in that. And I joke with people as well and say, look, the phone you're carrying is not the phone you carried 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's not that the phone 15 years ago was bad, right? It's not that it didn't work then. It did. Mm-hmm. You just adapted to new technology and new things that came out. And that's where I always encourage people to say, hey, have as many tools in your toolbox as you can, right? The traditional systems you have done for years will work, and they're probably fantastic, right? Guys who float full mud shower pans and walls and have perfect installs, like that's an incredible skill, and you should keep that and keep using it. But there will be times when you might need a different solution. And that's where I think having that broad spectrum, right, of having to say, hey, I've got a lot of different tools and options. I can meet with the homeowner, determine what they're looking for specifically, and then meet that need. And maybe it's even they want something as simple as, hey, I want a low end bid, a medium, and I want your bulletproof. I want a lifetime warranty from a manufacturer for installing this. You provide 3 bids based off of that and let them choose. And it's surprising, I think, to people how often people will upgrade the bid, right? They'll get a bid from some
Correct.
3 or 4 different contractors, but then you're the contractor who showed up and gave them 3 different ranges. And you're the one who said, hey, here's the reasons why I recommend each of these. It's up to you, right? You might not want to buy a Ferrari, but you might need a Honda. But do you really want the jalopy, right? Do you really want the one that you don't know is going to make it? And I think most people are pretty reasonable when they're faced with those type of choices. And I think it also sets you apart. It makes you look more professional to be able to have different options and be able to just, again, comfortably address each of those things. So we always encourage that and say, look, we come out with new systems, new technology. It speeds you up. It makes your life easier, right? For us, and even in our industry, not just Laticrete, but a lot of manufacturers making lightweight products.
Yeah.
I would much greater prefer to carry a 25-pound bag of adhesive as opposed to a 50-pound bag.
Yes.
Right. And that's just, if I'm going upstairs all day long, it's just nice to be able to do things like that. And those, again, are just things on your body at the end of the day, right? It's a heavily physical job. It can make your life a little easier. And so we just encourage people to say, hey, come to trainings, right? Like, get exposed to those things. And I also try and remind people that, right, we're in this for the long haul, right? We care about building relationships for decades. Like, that's what we do. It's what our founders were still family owned. 3rd generations now involved in the business. They care a lot about building relationships, and it does us no good to sell somebody product for one project, right? You might get, okay, we got one sale. I need people using our products for life. Like, hey, they make great products. We trust them. We'll use them when we can. And that's what we care about more, because that's how you build actual business, not just, that one-off sale. You say, well, see you later. I'll probably never see you again. And that's not functional for anyone in our industry. It's far too small.
Well, so on the point of the warranty, and this is where I want to kind of talk about the value creation. I want like your side of it, right? So once again, if I'm going in and I'm trying to increase my price, you may feel you're at a dead end, but you're probably not communicating clearly with your clients, in my opinion. And so oftentimes I've heard from clients, like, I'm the only one that'll mention that I even have a workmanship warranty on my installations. Now, my state mandates a 2-year workmanship warranty. If you buy flooring product from me, I'll give you 5. And that's because I believe in the products I'm selling. I believe in the steps I take to reach an end result. And so I'll put 5 on it. And I make sure to say, hey, state standard is 2. I'm going to give you a 5. Let's go. I know that there's different products that you have a 10 and lifetime at 25, right? And
so we can go 5, 10, 25 commercial or lifetime residential.
Okay. And so, I mean, but mentioning that's going to put you ahead of other people, right? And so besides a warranty, what are ways that you think the contractors can sit here and find things that they're probably already offering but may not be mentioning to help create that value in the price that they have already have?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And it's one thing that I've watched a lot in my time working with contractors, right? And said, hey, look, using single source, right? I actually strongly recommend this for especially installation materials. When you can, using a single source will give you typically some type of benefit, right? Which at least means you're calling one person, because I've been on jobs where they use 3 or 4 different people's products. And what invariably happens is everybody says, mine seems to be fine. Right. I'm like, look, my recommendation is use one single source if you can. And that way you will get, right, without even spending more money, typically you'll get some form of a warranty. Right. And so for us, our warranties, if you're using a full Laticrete system to install, you can get 100% labor and materials, right? Which means we will cover the entire cost to rip out everything, reinstall it, give the same floor back that was needed, or shower or wall or whatever that is. And I think it's important, right? You're already buying the material. So the warranty value add is huge there. You're able to do that and provide that. But there's other things outside of that as well, right? There's products that we manufacture, I'm sure others do too, that have outside benefits. But we talk about things like microban, right? Will help limit mold and mildew growth in your shower, right? In your grout joints. There's certain things that just by selecting a certain product have benefits outside of that. Or, hey, I'm using a liquid applied waterproofing in this installation. I'm not going to use, a mud set. And what that will do is it'll keep all the waterproofing on top of your installation, right down to your drain. You won't have any soaking in. And if you've ever ripped up an old shower pan in the past, they have a tendency to smell like mold and mildew, those things. And again, you can just highlight some of the differences on these installs that you're already doing the work. There's even from an environmentally friendly standpoint, right? Saying like, hey, this packaging, right, can be recycled, right? You can go through, there's a lot of things that I think are hot buttons for individual people, but being knowledgeable enough to kind of span that for customers and say, hey, what matters to you on this project? Because when you work with people enough and you're knowledgeable enough, right, it might be something like, oh, I'm really worried because I had a failure last time. I don't ever want to worry about this floor again. And I plan on, retiring in this house and living here for 30 years. I don't ever want to have an issue. Great. Let's do something that's a lifetime warranty. You won't ever have to worry about it. And it's a lifetime warranty through the manufacturer. So you can call them even if I'm gone, right? Yeah. If I retired and won the lottery, you can still reach out to the company that made the products. And I think those are value add things. I think also industry certifications, right? Talking about the fact that, hey, I do continuing education. I attend these things. Again, because people want professionals to be doing the work in their homes. Or on their projects, and they want to be able to trust that. And I think having some of that credibility helps. I can tell you, I've been to job walks where they really call me like, Brett, they just don't trust me. I need you to come out and say the same thing I've been saying. And I walk in, right, and I've got the Laticrete logo on my shirt. And I walk in and I repeat virtually the exact same thing they've been telling their client. And the client's like, oh, okay, that's good to know. And maybe they got burned in the past, right? Maybe that client had bad experiences, but again, that's a free value add that we can help do and provide for someone on a project that other people don't do, right? People just show up and give them a number and walk away. And I think that those things help distinguish you as a professional, help people trust you. And there's other people who are third parties like myself that can come in and give our honest opinion and feedback. And I always try and tell people too, have that relationship built in advance, let the rep know what they're walking into. I've walked into projects, right, where clearly they decided they needed somebody to blame. I would recommend having a conversation with the person before that, right? Because I can't lie on site, right? Like I'm going to be honest. And if I see something that like could have been a mistake that you didn't even know was there, like, let's have the conversation first so we can go in as partners together on this. And help solve a problem for someone, because I'm also not there to throw you under the bus, right? I don't want to do that either. I'm trying to make the situation a good one. So I encourage all of the above, right? The warranty offering, understanding the products and the values and the benefits, whether it's antimicrobial, whether it's the time it takes before you can use your shower or your entryway again, right? Because it dries faster and you can walk on it. There's a lot of different features that matter to people. And sometimes just listening to their concerns and then selecting something and saying, hey, you don't want to be out of, you need to use your bathroom within the next 2 days.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then we need to make sure we're using rapid products to do that. And I can help you do that. I'm not just going to tell you have to wait 7 days or 14 days to be able to get back in here.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of those things, and that's understanding your client's needs, which, right, we do the same thing when we're working with contractors. We try and understand what are your needs? What are you looking for here? And hopefully we can provide solutions that matter to them as well.
Well,
and a lot of times go ahead. Sorry.
No, what I was going to say is this is all built in, right? Like all of this stuff already exists. You're just not talking about it. And so you charged more. You're not offering anything different. You're just mentioning all of these benefits. If you would have used one supplier to create the system, right, there's probably going to be a warranty in place. But were you selling the warranty before, or were you just selling that you were able to install? You know, are you using dustless removal equipment? Do you have an air scrubber that you're putting on the job site? Make a big deal out of it, because nobody else is. Can you come up with some kind of, you know, maybe you're ripping out a bunch of carpet and the dog's been peeing in the house, right? And it's seeped into the concrete and it still kind of smells once you get everything out. Can you come up with some catchy name for a, you know, treatment to put on it, and this is your in-house brand? Like, what can you do, or what are you already doing that you're not selling? I raised my prices for installing LVP from $2 to $250 a square foot at one point, and the only thing I changed was that I added in a sweeping compound. And so I'm going to go sweep your floor up with this sweeping compound. It's not going to create dust. Well, the bag was good for like 1,000 to 1,500 square feet, and I only needed to do like 100 square feet, you know, at 25 cents a square foot or something like that to pay for all of it. It, like, no brainer, right? It's simple, easy, communicate. Hey, I keep your house clean. Here's how I do it. And I was more than the next guy, but nobody else talked about keeping their house clean.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that. I think I've talked to a lot of people, and they're like, well, I don't want to be a salesman. Right. I don't want to sit there and come across as that type of person. And I would actually say, look, I don't want to either. Right. And I'm in sales. What I would like to do is educate people. Right. Like, my job is to be an expert on certain things.
Yes. And
being able to go in and say, hey, I'm going to educate you on the reasons why. Right. Here's the reasons why we're trying to do this, or here's the reasons why you're going to use this compound. Right. If you just went and swept for your own sake so you didn't have dust, it would be worth it to you. But doing that as a feature and saying, this is one thing that sets me apart, right? This is one of the reasons why I take pride in my job, because I've met people that are fantastic installers, that are incredible. They use the highest end material, and I don't think their customers ever know. Like, they just do it on their own. I'm like, oh my gosh, if you actually told people the reasons why you're doing this, what you're using, if you brought them up to speed, right? And you're never going to make somebody an expert, but at least if you have the conversation and say, here's the reasons why, just want to walk you through this. This is what I'm trying to do. I think it makes people understand, say, wow, they're really being transparent with me. They care about my business. They care about my home. They care about the install they're doing. And I think being upfront with that is a good way to go. And I think people are willing to pay more for those type of things because they understand what they're getting. Right? Because if you don't speak up on any of that, then you're leaving it up to the homeowner to determine, okay, well, this one's $500 less for the bid.
Correct.
I mean, I guess they're probably the same. We're probably going to get the same floor. And so I guess I'll save $500 versus exactly what you said, right? Giving reasons why you selected the products you used, why you're going to install in the methods that you do, right? The tools that you'll bring in, how you'll leave their home afterwards,
exactly.
The condition you care about. And I think even saying, if you do some of this for a while and say, hey, if you'd like to talk to past people, right? I think if you can get some clients who love you and you've done multiple projects for, if you can get some that'll even say, hey, would I ever be able to use you as a reference? Right? Those type of things are extremely powerful. To be able to say, hey, you're welcome to look at this, or here's another project I did. Again, it's just transparency. And that's what we actually try and do. I think it's how I get past the bridge of being a salesperson to saying, hey, I should be just a consultant that can help you build your business better, help you be more profitable, help you get more referrals. If I'm not doing those things, it's okay to not take my phone call.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't have to talk to me when you see me out in the field. If I'm not an asset to you, I'm okay with that. Because I think once you start using those tools, right, you recognize the things you're already doing have value. Mm-hmm. You're going to naturally end up being able to monetize those if you communicate those well. And that's what we try and do, right? Same thing with products. Mm-hmm. If we've got a new product launching, we're trying to explain the reason why. Not that you should just spend $5 more on a bag or something. Yeah. There should be a reason. Exactly. There should be a justification of why that's good for you as a business owner. So no, I think those things are hugely important. I think it's what separates a lot of people who are able to charge a lot more for their business than the people who are just trying to bid as cheap as they can.
Totally agree. All right, I'm going to jump in here for 1 second.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Whether you're an installer, retailer, distributor, or serve in another capacity within our industry, attending trade shows is a solid resource to expand your knowledge and networking base. You can also learn about the newest and industry-leading products coming to market. The International Surface event is returning to Las Vegas January 31st through February 2nd, 2023. So mark your calendars now. Floor Academy podcast listeners will have exclusive registration offers coming soon. Stay up to date with the International Surfaces event page on Facebook. Johns Manville manufactures a range of innovative building materials, including products for the flooring industry. From GoBoard to Evolith, JM products are not often visible, but they provide technical, environmental, and economic advantages to the essential items you are installing every day. GoBoard is an ultra-lightweight and waterproof tile backer board, while Evolith products are fiberglass or polyester non-woven components used in the making of carpet tiles, LVT, and resilient flooring. So, Brett, you hit on a really good point. Is a lot of times contractors are like, I don't want to be a salesman. And I used to tell my clients that all the time, like, I'm not a salesman, I'm just an installer. And the truth of the matter is, you are a salesman. You decided to own a business, and the minute you decided to own a business, you became a salesperson, whether you like it or not. So you better get used to it and start liking it. Now, do you need to be a slum, scummy, slimy, used car salesman? That stereotypical thing? No, you don't. And that educating people, that's what I've always personally sought to do is go, and if I can educate them, whether they use me or not, at least they can make an informed decision. And if they choose to go with that cheaper route that's risky, then so be it. But I let them know what I could bring to the table and how I would do it, what I would provide, and how I would make it successful. And so if this other, when I want to make sure they can compare those apples and oranges, right? You were talking about how this bid's $500 cheaper and they think it's apples and apples. I'm trying to make sure they know it's apples and oranges, and I'm telling you what you get over here and I'll list it out. And this person says, oh, 3x5 tub surround. Well, here, this much. I'll be done in 3 days, and then it takes them 7 days. And I told them it would take 7 days to begin with, and there's probably unforeseen prep work that's not there. Like this communication thing, this transparency, this honesty that you're talking about is so important. So I'd love to know more about that. Like, how have you found that that's not only helpful, but was it something was that a learned skill for you to just be like, you know what? It does, I have nothing to hide. And so it's just going to be easier to lay it all out.
Yeah. I mean, I generally speaking don't love salespeople, right? And I say that as somebody whose career currently is that. And the reason why is we've all had bad experiences, right? Mm-hmm. I've had bad experiences with contractors too, right? But I think we always highlight, I think this is what I don't want to be, right? And it's this example of that, like a sleazy salesperson who's just trying to talk you into something instead of sitting there to educate people. And I think that's where I would differentiate it and say, look, I'm okay being authentic and comfortable with what I'm telling you because it's the truth, right? I'm not out here trying to talk you into something. I'm not trying to convince you of a one-time thing that I'm just, I'm going to take this bag of money and run. And I think getting comfortable with the fact that you're not trying to sell someone, you're trying to educate them has always helped me. Mm-hmm. Because when I'm in situations where somebody takes the time to explain to me something, right? I'm out to purchase something new. And there's the person who just tells me, here's the flashiest thing. Or somebody says, hey, here's the reasons why. like I've spent more money on things because I understood the benefit of it and the value of it. And I think recognizing for contractors who do this every day, most of the people they interact with don't, right? How often did somebody remodel their home? How often does somebody build a new home, right? They might do this a couple times in their whole life. And they already know that. The homeowner already knows they don't know what's going on, right? They don't know all the intricacies. So they're already suspicious. And I think that's where when you come forward and say, hey, I'm just going to be trying to be as transparent as I can. Feel free to ask me questions. I'm happy to address anything you want to. I'll try and tell you the why behind what I'm trying to do or why I would do your project this way. I think giving some of that helps take down some of those walls, right, of selling and giving the reasons why you're going to charge more. Because I think at the end of the day, people are willing to pay for quality. They're willing to pay for something that they believe in and they trust. And I think that shows the education level of the person coming in, right? That, hey, I'm knowledgeable enough to have this conversation, because I've gone to job walks before where it's been interesting. I can tell that the person installing has maybe not been installing very long. And they say stuff that's off the wall where I'm like, no, this isn't going to be great. Right. And I'll try and talk to them afterwards. Right. I'll pull them aside as we walk out and say, hey, just trying to help you here. But I think if you come in and you're knowledgeable and you're comfortable doing what you said, is having those conversations. And then again, I think surrounding yourself with people that can help value add to you. A story that came to mind when we were talking a little bit ago was, I had a contractor who called me. I was doing a commercial project. So it was about 40,000, like 45,000 square feet of a 12 by 24 tile, right? And he needed a 10-year warranty. And he told me what he was using. And one of the products he was using was just our standard cement grout, right? A standard 1500 grout from us. And he's like, hey, I need a 10-year warranty. Am I good? And I'm like, no, like you have to upgrade grout in order to do that. And he's like, well, I already did the project. And I was like, okay, well, we don't offer a 10-year warranty on that. I'm sorry. You have to upgrade grout. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't. He's getting fired up with me. He's like, I can't, I already bid this. My pricing's locked. Like, there's no way I can do this. And I was like, okay. I'm like, well, he's like, that's way more expensive grout. I'm like, yeah, you're right. It's like 30 or 40% more. He's like, I was like, wait, just real quick. I was like, it's 12 by 24 tile, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, what size joint are you installing? He's like, oh, it's 1/8 of an inch. I'm like, okay. I'm like, can you just hold real quick? I'm gonna do some math. So we have a coverage calculator. Like we have an app for it, right? And I told him, I was like, do you know how much you were going to spend on grout for the whole project with the standard 1500 series? He's like, no. I'm like, right about $600. I'm like, do you know how much is the 30% more is going to put you like $900 for over 40,000 square feet of tile, $300 difference. And he was like, what? I'm like, yeah, grout goes a really long way with small joints, right? You're 1/8 of an inch in a big tile. Yeah. You're only filling those little gaps. And he immediately was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. Like $300 isn't a big deal at all. I'm like, no. And you get a 10-year warranty from us. You're meeting the standards you need to for your commercial project. And again, like we're able to, all right, I can walk him through that process and say, hey, look, I'm, again, hopefully a benefit. Because I think what would have happened is he would have been like, it's 30% more. I can't afford 30% raw material increase. Thinking overall, and he's probably right, he couldn't have. Not thinking this is a tiny fraction of my project costs.
Yep.
Right. And so, again, those are the relationships you build. That's the education level, hopefully, that you get. And you get to know people around you that you can bring in and say, hey, I want help. Because people have called me a ton of the time and asked me questions that I don't know the answer to. Like, fortunately, I'm surrounded by a lot of really smart people in our company. We have people in our technical department who sit on the governing boards, right, for the TCNA and other things. Like, I can call these people who literally are helping write the book for our industry and say, what do we do here? And they're awesome. Like, they're such good people to be able to bring in. So again, I think it's not selling, right? I think if you're trying to talk somebody into something they don't want, that's usually what selling, like a salesperson, like the sleazy salesperson, is something they don't want or need. Understanding what somebody wants, asking the right questions and saying, hey, what do you want out of this install, right? What are you looking for? Is it, hey, it's a rental property I own. I want the cheapest possible install. It's got to be fast. I'm just getting new tenants in. Okay, well, then I can help you install a system that's similar to that. Or is it, hey, this is my grandma's home. I want to make sure she's got a shower that doesn't have a curb she's going to trip over. I want to make sure that she can be in here for the remainder of her life. And I really care about high quality. that's a different conversation. So I think that's how I always get past the selling is, like I said, I think you can always find a way to help somebody and align what your goal is with theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're not talking them into anything. You're just saying, hey, here's the reasons. Here's what I can do. Here's how I can help you. Hopefully that's a resource to you. And I've talked people out of using our products in the past, right? On situations where I was like, hey, you're going to void an entire system warranty by using one product of mine. Mm-hmm. Like, just go buy our competitors.
Yeah.
Like, don't. And I think hopefully that builds some trust with people when they say, you know, I appreciate that you're being honest and direct with me, and telling homeowners no as well. I've seen people that want to say yes to every request or thing, not understanding the ramifications that the contractor immediately knows. Yeah. And again, being comfortable saying, hey, I'm the professional here, not condescending, but I want to tell you why I wouldn't recommend this. And it's not something that I feel comfortable doing. And I think that also carries a lot of value. So I think that's a lot of just relationship building.
Well, you know, there's a couple things, and you're talking about, one, admitting that I've talked myself out of stuff. I'm like, look, you know what? We could do this project, or you're going to move out in a year, so I can charge you 10 grand, or you can go get carpet for like $500. I'm happy to do it, but I don't want to, I'm not, you make the decision, right? Yeah. It's really weird in that I think most homeowners think you're going to show up and you're running a business. They know you want to make money, right? But they just assume you're like super hungry and you're going to like try and get this project. You're needy. And so this nonchalant attitude, if you can have one and be like, whatever, right? Like you've told, like you said, you told people like, you know, don't use our product. You don't need to use my services. I don't need to make this sale because I want to give you what's best for you in hopes that you remember this experience and you come back in the future and you say, you know what? He seemed like a really good guy. He seemed trustworthy and knowledgeable. I don't need his services now, but in a year or two, maybe they have a project come up where they need you. And hopefully that rapport was built. And the other thing that you're talking about that I think is super important is honestly, essentially what you're saying is shut up and listen. And like, it doesn't happen enough. Like you go in trying to make a sale, shut up, listen to the homeowner, like, let them tell you their story, ask questions that are engaging, find out what their concerns actually are. One of my favorite questions is, have you worked with any contractors in the past and what was that experience like? Because they're going to tell you every bad thing that happened. He didn't communicate. He didn't show up when he said he was going to. He left a mess everywhere. You know what? I appreciate that. I got you. You know, I'm going to make sure that I'll text you when I'm coming. I'll make sure that we sweep up at the end of every day. Like, it's little things. They're going to tell you everything they hate so that you can provide that 5-star experience for them. No problem. Just do what they tell you to do. It's not rocket science.
Yeah, and I will say it's one thing we actually get taught, right? It's like you mentioned career development for me, right? And even that, like, it's impossible if you're not willing to learn. And it's one thing that I've accepted or realized, and one thing we train continually in our teams is to say, look, if you're talking most of the time, you're probably not selling. Right? Because you're not understanding the actual needs of the person, right? Like, and I've done this. I've thrown myself in the bus, right? I've walked into a contractor and just unleashed, right, verbal vomit of all the reasons why this new product's amazing, right? And maybe all those things were true. And then after I finished, I was like, hey, any questions? And they're like, well, not on that, but what about this? Right? Because they didn't care about my new sound control adhesive, right, that I was talking about. Yeah. They had something else they were looking for. And I think you're exactly right, right? Asking, hey, what are you worried about in this project? Right? Like, what are the things that are concerning you about doing this currently? Right? What have you had in the past is a brilliant question, right? What have the challenges been? Because they'll literally tell you all the things that annoyed them that you now know you can avoid. Or they'll volunteer information that can be amazing. It's right? People will be like, I want the highest quality install possible. And, I'm not worried about the cost of this. I just want to make sure it's done right and done once. Like, there are people who will say that to you.
Yeah.
And then you can immediately talk about all the highest performance things you can do on that project and why you're going to be the right selection and get the job, because everybody else who walks in will be like telling them all the reasons they're going to be inexpensive, why it's going to be really cheap and fast.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the hot button for them. And so, again, I think that's very smart, and it's wise to say, hey, look, I'm here to listen as much as possible. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to listen to what their needs are and what they're looking for. And that's true for us as well, right? It's what I try and do when contractors call me. I don't just say, hey, by the way, thanks for calling me.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my new anti-fracture membrane.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, what can I do for you? Like, what do you need? Like, what are you looking to do here?
Mm-hmm.
And that is an actual benefit to them. So I think that's very true. Being able to have the ability to not speak and ask questions and take time to listen, I think will serve people incredibly well, because then you can actually provide a service, right? That's when you're truly
Correct.
not selling. You're not talking them into things. You're just answering questions, providing information. And I think people appreciate that. So I know I do, right? I always apply this in my own personal life. If I go out shopping for something, I'm going to go buy a new truck or a TV or something. I would rather be able to ask questions, be heard, and then have somebody that's an expert tell me the reasons why they think something is a good solution.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
totally.
It's difficult though. It's not an easy thing to do.
Well, we like talking about ourselves and we like being knowledgeable, right? We want to go be the expert. You can be the expert, but you got to be quiet first. You can wait until they need the information out of you, right? So, we haven't hit on something yet. You'd mentioned it earlier. So, a lot of people call it the Olympic pricing model, and you were talking about like you have a good, better, best, or a 10, 25, or 5, 10, 25, or lifetime, depending on the warranty
5,
wise.
10.
But like you have a level of products, right? So there's good, better, best, or bronze, silver, gold, however you want to look at it. But being able to present a client these options, it may take you slightly more time to write up a bid that way. However, most people will never settle for bronze. Most people will always opt to upgrade to that silver level. And when you are able to sell at that gold level or the top level, it's much better. I don't think a lot of people realize that, one, you should be running your business on a margin, not a markup. You're gonna when you know the amount of profit you need to make, you're gonna be more profitable. So you need to be running on a margin. But it's then, if you're selling a $5 product and a $10 product, and you're selling them both at a 40% margin, you will make more on the $10 product. So if I can move you into this silver or gold territory, it instantly becomes more profitable. And the only thing I'm changing is product cost, because the showers probably, or whatever I'm working on, the floor, whether I'm doing a self-level pour, whatever, right? The amount of labor required is probably fairly similar between the three different categories of good, better, best. The only thing that's really changing is the product offering, and that product offering gets the pot gets sweeter as I move my way up the list. And so I'm looking to find a way to try and upsell them, but I just, look, here's your options. I can do it one of three ways, and this is what you get out of it. So how is that kind of why you have that system created for yourself? Or is it more of is it products kind of age out and they move their way down the list, or like, how does that work for you?
Yeah. So on our side, we engineer and design products specifically for the need, right? Like, where does that land? Because as we talked about, right, not everybody needs a Ferrari for everything, as much as we would all love that. And so we design products to fit certain categories and certain performance. The pool example I mentioned earlier, right, where certain products don't need the strength to survive in a submerged environment, right? And so there's a cost associated with that. So we definitely have tiered levels within our company. I mean, whether you go through our waterproofing, right, whether you go through our adhesives, our floor prep, right, you mentioned self-leveling, there's different needs for every different project. And so we have a wide variety. And I always tell people that, I'm like, look, we literally make anything you could need, whether you're installing something that you need to last forever in a crazy, harsh environment, or you need something that's going to be economical because the project can't afford that, and the homeowner might not be able to afford that. We make all of the above, but I think that's where the education side comes in, of knowing there's a variety of tools out there, because I can't tell you how many times I've been called by a contractor who got a project and he's like, hey, I'm installing this mosaic. It's $250 a square foot. I got to make sure it doesn't come off. What can I use? Which to me at that point, I'm like, okay, well, he's probably not aware of the higher end, right? He's never used them. He just is probably value shopped most of the time, bought something. This is what triggered it, right? That's what got him into it.
Yeah.
But how much would he probably love to be able to charge for those type of projects and become a specialist in that area, knowing, hey, this is the bulletproof installation, right? This is the Cadillac of installations that I'm installing. I can charge for that and charge more for it. And so you're right. I think having those tiers, right, as you mentioned, like the Olympic bidding, or there's a variety of different ways of putting it, a good, better, best, I think is always wise to have in your back pocket, because then you're flexible, right? You can walk into a project and you're not trying to fit your typical materials, your typical installation into all these different scopes of a project. You're able to say, hey, I have the tools necessary to do any of these. So yeah, in ours, it's pretty clearly laid out, right? We have warranty information. It's easy to get. Most manufacturers do stuff like that, where you can say, hey, here's an easy way to be able to understand what we're installing. And that's where at Laticrete, we try and do that aggressively, right? I've talked people down in levels of warranties, just simply because they didn't need it. And it would have probably priced them out of a bid and saying, hey, that's going to be overkill. So we definitely have that. We can go everything from, you're installing on a skyscraper, hundreds of feet up in the air, and you need to make sure that never falls off, and everything in between. Yeah. But I think where the right tool is usually calling an expert, right? Because I don't expect everybody to understand, the 15 plus thin sets that we have, which of our 9 grouts is the appropriate grout to use. Right? Like that's what we get paid to do. We should be able to provide that information pretty clearly and quickly, and help just be an assistant with that. And so I think I've encouraged a lot of contractors to do those type of things, right? To have multiple levels of bidding. Again, that comes to the question asking. If you talk to somebody and they're like, man, I'm really budget conscious, I cannot afford, much on this project. We're just trying to get it done for the last year or two we lived here before we sell. Well, then maybe you don't give them your gold bid. You go, okay, that's good to know. I'll give you at least a bronze and a silver. You can take your pick on that one. But no, I think those are wise to do, because again, you're a business owner. You're selling yourself. If I walked into a store, again, I like putting this in my own perspective, because maybe I'm a dumb sales guy and it helps me. But if I walked into a store to buy a TV and they only had one size and that was it, and they're like, we specialize in cheap TVs here, and there was one size of TV, I'm like, well, what if I wanted a nice, what if that's my thing? I'm a TV guy. I want to make sure I have the highest definition to watch football. I think we would think that's a strange thing to have happen if we were to go out shopping. But I think it's what can happen sometimes in contracting is you get, right? My in-laws recently had a bathroom bid and they got bids all over the place, right? Yeah. Over $10,000 for a shower, below $4,000 for the same shower, same material. Right. And everything in between. And they're like, what is going on with these bids? They asked me to look at them. It's like, what? This doesn't even make sense. And it was, right. People were not communicating the differences of what they were using and the why. And right, that helped them select, right. They were able to select what they wanted to use, because once I was able to help them and say, hey, ask some of these questions to your contractor, I'm happy to talk to him as well. They were able to pick the right system for them. So I think that just gives people options, right. Again, you're providing an additional service to your customers that a lot of people don't. And it does take more time, right? But I think once you build those systems in and you understand your square foot cost of different levels of material, it gets pretty simple and quick to change your bid level. And hopefully you get more of those gold ones that you said you can charge a better margin for, you're more profitable on, and then you can maybe say no to some of those bronze ones that you get busy enough you don't have to deal with. So, but it is I like watching people grow their businesses. It's one thing we've been fortunate to see at our company is watching people grow to what you started with in your comments at the beginning, right? Where they can go on vacation while their business runs, and they have crews now that are doing installs, and they're more on the back end running the business. It's cool to see people build businesses, and it's a fun part of my job is getting to see that. So yeah, but you can't do that if you're not willing to educate yourself, I don't think.
I think it's huge. You got to, like you said, you don't have to know all the product offerings, but you should probably know some. And I think you had mentioned somebody may be the guy that, or gal that needs to run out and they're always, I don't have enough. And they got to go buy the budget, whatever, on everything every time. And this is where raising your prices can really come in handy. And like I said, if you're at 250 and you can go to 3 and not change anything, that's great. But now there's use this episode to help you find a way to put together a system so you can go charge 5 a foot or, whatever it needs to be, and put a little value on it that people are like, oh, nobody else is offering that. And then you don't have to think about being able to go and buy the better tool, right? You don't have to run out to that store that has really cheap, bad tools that everybody goes to and they just need to use it one time. You can go buy the better version without thinking about it. You're going to be able to afford to go and get the product that trowels out easier and there's wood adhesives that just trowel like really, really thick peanut butter. And then there's stuff that you can get and it's so easy to use and friendly, and you're not struggling and putting a bunch of effort in it to get it around where you need it. And so, yeah, a little bit of extra money goes a long way. But do I need that on every project? No, maybe not. Once again, as Brett said, if someone's like, look, we just need to get it done and we need to get it done cheap and it's a smaller project or something, can you buy the lesser glue and maybe, charge a little bit more on the labor just because it's going to take a little longer? Probably, but you can still probably get that cost down overall. Is it in an upstairs? Do they need the vapor barrier glue? No, because it's in an upstairs. You probably don't need it, so you can cut that cost out. So what can you do? How do you manipulate the products by having that knowledge to be able to sell the project, keep it where you need to, but still making money? You got to start putting all these things together. You're not just an installer. You are a salesperson. You're marketing. You're the delivery guy, the warehouse person, the receptionist, you're the mail room. You're everything. So I'm sorry, but you need to fill a lot of hats right now. And this is a very important one because it's going to move you forward a lot more quickly and make you a lot more comfortable. Like I said earlier, the ability to walk in and not be needy when you need a job. Because I remember when I first went out on my own, it was bad. I was like really hungry and eager, and like they could see I was passionate, so I won projects, but I probably turned a lot of people off too because I was like, you're just like, you're new and you don't know what you're doing, and that's fine. You got to start somewhere. But when you can finally go out and you have a bank account that can back you up and you can sit for 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it's going to be, right? You build it up over time. But when you can go a bit of project and you're like, whatever. Like the people look at you and they're like, why doesn't he care? Like it's intriguing to them. They almost want to know more. And so it's really, they're going to look into you more and find out more about you because you don't, you're okay. You don't have to get it to work.
Well, and you have the confidence to be comfortable with what you're saying, right? To say, hey, this is the reason why I'm doing this. I'm comfortable that the right jobs will come my way. I'm comfortable that I'll win bids because I know I'm being competitive based off what I'm bidding. And, just as much as I think this is one area, right, in the education that we talked about with this, right, which is learning new products, new systems, new ways. Some of the wealthiest people I personally know are contractors, right? People who have Ferraris in their garages, people who I'm like, I'm sorry, what did you just buy? Or where are you going on vacation? Right. But they didn't start that way.
Yeah.
They started learning, right? Most of them became installers and were good at something and liked it, but then they had to do all the other stuff, right? They had to learn to become a good salesperson, right? They had to learn to understand the business aspect of what they're doing. And those are usually the ones that end up setting themselves apart, that start growing their business, they take a step back and go, okay, how are some people bidding this work and getting it? Right? Like I'm out here bidding at $250 a square foot I heard there's a guy who bids 5.
Yeah.
How does he make any projects at 5? Shouldn't I be taking every single one of the projects he could even possibly get? But yet it does exist. So if it does, if you're willing to take a step back, okay, then how? Because what is different here that I can make myself, right, emulate those things? And it's I think a good skill in life to do is to look at things and say, okay, these people are extremely successful. Yeah. How can I emulate some of those things? What are they doing that's different than what I'm doing? And so some of that's product, like we talked about, right? Educating yourself. Some of it's the business background. Some of it's the listening, right? Sharpening your tools and being like, hey, I'm gonna accept the fact that I probably need to get better at some of these areas. And like in Laticrete, we get assigned books every year to read, right? We go to training events. I've done everything from like leadership backpacking stuff with llamas in Wyoming to sitting in classrooms at Harvard, right? And everything in between. And it's humbling, right? When you go in the situation, you're like, all right, I was learning in school. That was fine. Like, I'm done with that. I don't want to go to school anymore.
Yeah.
But when you take a step back, I think, and start looking at these things and saying, right, I've had contractors, same thing. I've been a contractor 30 years. I don't need to switch my products.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, you don't have to. I'm not telling you have to, but I think you might be missing something. And I think that's what it's humbling, I think. And I think you have to take a step in saying, look, I don't know everything. I'm going to try and research and learn more. But those are usually the people we see, right? Because we get kind of the bird's eye view of contractors, distributors, all this being on the manufacturing side. And when we see people operating that way, like, those are the people I want to partner with, because I know they're not going to be buying pallets from me in the future. They're going to be buying truckloads.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to be going from residential to high-end residential to commercial, right, to huge projects and huge crews in the field. And it usually comes from that, is people saying, hey, I'm going to take a step back.
Yep.
I'm going to try and look at my business and how I can accelerate that. And I love working with people like that. I love being able to be alongside them and hopefully help them build their business to the best of our ability. And yeah, it's a fun process to be involved with.
Well, I think it's super hard. You get into running a business, and you got to be goal oriented, and you set them, and you got to keep striving, and you're working towards this one. You're working towards this one. You go and you go and you go and you go, and you're always shooting for something else that you're in that moment of go, 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 that to step back feels like a waste of time. But really, we don't look back enough. And so sometimes you really do. You need to stop. You need to look back at where you started from and what you've gained and how you've matured and how the business has changed. And you need to go back. And I had somebody call me out a couple months ago, and I looked back and I was like, oh, I have accomplished like a ton of stuff. I just didn't even realize it because I was so busy doing it. And so that's a really valuable skill, to be able to like step back and evaluate where you're at. And then just that education component of being willing to learn and grow and change. And that was something I was lacking personally for years. And it really wasn't until I got into this industry that I was like, okay, I want to start growing. And like the school system isn't for me. Like, I'm not going to sign up and go to college, but I don't mind listening to podcasts or having these conversations or picking up an audiobook and listening to it. But I'm really thirsty for knowledge and moving myself ahead in life in a different way. As before, I would have been happy just sitting on the couch watching another reality television show and rotting my brain. So it's a huge deal to be able to just stop and enjoy the moment, look and assess where you're at. I think a lot of people get caught up in that too, as they keep trying to build and build and build, and their business isn't in a place for that to happen, and it can make it worse. Sometimes in order to grow, you got to stop, you got to fix everything so that you can even move ahead more successfully. And when you fix it, and you have those systems and processes in place, you're going to scale much more rapidly, because it's going to be manageable now, as opposed to just you're putting a fire out over here and over here and over. Everything's a emergency that you can't ever get the things you actually need to get done.
Yeah. And I think that's a skill in itself, right? Even just getting to a point where you recognize, okay, I need to take some time. Because I've had those weeks, right, where I worked all day, every day. And I was busy the whole time. And I never took time to go, okay, wait, why am I putting out all these fires? what is going on? Am I actually doing the things that are going to make me successful? Right. And it's not an easy thing to do. It takes, right. Cause like you said, you feel like you're being non-productive. You feel like if I'm not on installing, if I'm not doing this, right, I don't want to go to an education thing that a manufacturer is putting on, or I don't want to go meet with a rep and learn about a new product, because every moment I'm doing that, I'm not making money, which is true, right? There's an opportunity cost to that. You're not in the field doing something. But to your point, right, your scalability of saying, hey, I'm learning a new skill set so that long term, I'll get paid back for this, right? Over the years, this will build a massively larger return than staying busy. And I think that's true, right? We accept it in other areas of our life, right? We would say like, hey, if you've got a helper, right, you either train the helper to get better, or you end up doing the helper's work all the time anyway, and they're not truly helping you, right? You have to take some time. You could have done it faster instead of teaching them. And I think we have to accept that with ourselves, saying, hey, there's some stuff I'm going to need to learn to set back to be better at my business. And that's where, like I said, we, on our side, Laticrete's huge with training. That's what we were founded on. Our owners still care a ton about that, which I think is fantastic. They care about building the industry. Because, right, everybody always assumes like, oh, you just want to sell more product. Well, we do, to be clear, we do want to sell more product. But the way we do that is our industry being more successful by the people we work with being more successful. So our goals are actually aligned in that. And that the better we can help provide that for the people that work with us, by default, the more successful we will be. And that's always fun to see. Like I said, you go from buying few bags here, a pallet here, a truckload here, multiple truckloads, right? Like that's where I think business gets built. And but you said, right, it's taking the time, investing in yourself, right? Taking the education, being willing to do those things. And I've seen it a lot in the field, right? Where we've had that aha moment with somebody like, whoa, I didn't even know this existed. Yeah. Like this will save me a ton of time. And I'm like, yeah, no, we sell a lot of it. There's people out there buying it. You know, we can help. Like, what else exists I didn't know about? I'm like, well, what do you need? Right. And then we have those conversations. So I would encourage people with that, right, is get to know the people in the industry around you. There's a ton of people that, like, I really like the flooring industry as a whole. I think it's a big industry, but it's small, right? Like people know people. People's families are involved. My brother is involved in the flooring industry. My brother-in-law is involved in the flooring industry, right? Like, I think I like the fact that it's interconnected, and I think you can build really good relationships that can help you build your business and your future, which that's all really we try and do, is help with those type of things. To say, hey, we can be an asset to somebody and hopefully make a friend and also help them, be more successful in the future. So,
well, I think that's what we're all trying to do, is we're trying to build the future, and we need to build it together. We need the partnerships in order to make it successful and to continue. And that's one of the reasons why this show is here, is that there's a lot of people that don't have this growth mindset. It's a scarcity mindset, and they're afraid to help people. And honestly, that's not what I found in this industry overall, but there are those people out there, and we need to all get on the same page and push this industry forward in a positive light and get on the education bandwagon so that we can all perform successfully and run better businesses, help homeowners and owners of commercial buildings and whatever have successful projects where, you're not ending up in this boat where people hate contractors. Like there's no reason for it. Like if you're hiring a professional, you should be a professional. And so let's go make that happen. And the partnerships you can get with the companies in this industry, when you really believe in them and want to work together, it makes your life so much easier. There isn't a single one that, like you said, you're not going to lie. You want to sell product, but you'd rather have the relationship to sell product long term. You don't want to sell me one bag. You want to sell me truckloads someday, and that's fine. But in the meantime, we can get to know each other and find out how we can help each other succeed. So,
and if I'm not if I'm not that help, don't buy, right? Or find somebody else in my company that you trust, right? Like that. I would encourage people with that as well, right? There's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people willing to help. Find people you trust, that you value their opinion, because I've I fully am comfortable saying that, right? To your point, like, I'm like, hey, if I'm not an asset to your business, don't bring me in, right? Like, use somebody that is. Do something that's good for you and your family. You should. And I'm comfortable with that, knowing that there's a lot of people out there, and not everybody's going to love me. Hopefully most of them are okay with me, but
I'm with you.
Okay,
One of my favorite, there's a couple companies, in fact, that like my reps I call are not in my territory. They're not my region. They're not, and I don't care and they don't care. We've built a relationship. They're happy to take my call, answer my question, get me what I need, and we're done. And then I'll see the local rep around. I'm like, hey man, how you doing? They're like, you never call. I'm like, sorry. I have my guy. Like, I can't, the online community that's been developed through, you can go back to John Bridge forums, and then you have, the Facebook communities now and whatnot, but it's made it so that you may not meet your local person. And there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you're getting what you need to be successful, I think that's great. I do want to be respectful of your time here. So is there anything that we haven't hit on that you think we need to?
No, well, I mean, I think there's obviously, we could probably go on and on about some of these topics for a very long time. No, I think it's just, like you said, it's taking the time to educate yourself, right? Whether it's new products, whether it's the way you go about your business. You mentioned like school, right? I think people have a tendency for some reason, right? Like, I have no desire to go back to school, right? Just, I don't want to do that currently. But there are so many resources available now. And right, whether it's YouTube, whether it's podcasts, whether it's any of that, find the things that work for you, that work for the way you like to learn and the people you need to bring around you. And I would say go with that, right? Like, you want an onset, you don't like doing a YouTube video because you need to feel stuff, call a rep. We'll bring you product. We will sit there in a garage or on a job site with you and show you how it works, right? Like, find those things. So no, I think we talked a pretty broad range of topics, but I've appreciated it. I hope it's been beneficial to the people who are tuning in. I would encourage that, right? Feel free to call me, reach out to anybody on our team. Shoot, you probably see our COO, Ron, who's president of North America. He's online all the time. I don't know if he never sleeps, or I don't know how he even manages.
Oh, don't tell me that. He gave us the crash course that he gives all the employees that come on. We did the time management with Ron.
Oh, getting things done, time management. Yep.
Yes. Yep. We've done that on this podcast. So that's how he does it. He told you, discipline equals freedom.
Yep. Quoting Jocko Willink on that one. Yep. Extreme ownership. And it's true. It really does. Correct. And he does an incredible amount of stuff internally. So seeing all of that, like, I would encourage that too, right? Like, he's built tools and systems in his life to help him be productive and successful. And it clearly has worked. Yeah. And that's what I see from most people is they didn't just magically, grow up into this incredibly productive, successful person. Most people just took a ton of time and worked hard at being that. And that's what I would encourage people to continue doing. So I appreciate you having me on here. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, no, 100% mine. I've enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed talking with you before, when we were setting this up and whatnot. I look forward to talking in the future. So what I want to say is, just thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing your expertise. Folks, I want to say that's what we got for this week. You can check out flooracademypod.com, go to the shop, pick up a t-shirt. It's the middle of summer right now. You probably don't want a hoodie, but it's going to get cold eventually. Get a hoodie. Trade shows are going to come back around. You need a fanny pack. We got fanny packs over there, all kinds of fun stuff. You can help support the show, patreon.com/flooracademy. Even $5 a month goes a long way in continuing to help the content come out for you so that we can help facilitate you changing your business. Find us on any of your favorite listening platforms. Make sure to hit the little subscribe button, leave a review. That all helps me show up higher in the results. And thank you to the sponsors, International Surface Event, Johns Manville, and Laticrete. I appreciate everything you do to help keep this content coming out, and we will catch you next week.